Welcome back to a new episode of The Growth Show with
Glenn,
Dr. Glenn. No?
to Glenn.
I'm Keshelle. This is episode 6. We're going to keep counting until we can't remember how much episodes it is. And today we are back to talk about bold boundaries, y'all.
Wow.
Bold boundaries, how to draw the line, where to draw the line, why draw the line in order to grow boldly. This is a topic, we're going to keep it as tight as possible, but it's really one of those hot topics, I believe. And it can apply to lovebirds, it can apply to leaders, it could apply to lifelong learners, wherever you fall within that spectrum. Setting boundaries is a critical piece of bold growth. I want to ask you, is I think you are a master at setting boundaries, not just setting boundaries, but enforcing boundaries. And we literally talked about it, I think, a couple of days ago. But how do you define boundaries? Let's start there.
So, my definition of boundaries is that cutoff point where I am cutting off for a purpose, right? And once I cut off, that cutting off is for me and not for you. So I'm okay with you not being okay with my boundaries.
Yeah. And I love that. And you said cutting off, and the definition, and I don't know if this is the formal definition, but it's a set of clear limits and rules people set for themselves, as you said,
Yep.
to and others to protect their well-being, maintain self-respect, and pursue personal growth. So it's not about the other person.
Not about you.
It's for your own mental health,
My
your
sanity.
own growth, etc. And so I love that, because sometimes we are afraid to set boundaries, or people are afraid to set boundaries because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. What do you
Or
think
you
about
may be
that?
afraid because you don't want to ruffle somebody's feather. Because I know even at work, I have strong guidelines about setting boundaries. Like when I'm on midterm break, when I'm on vacation, when I'm on holidays, I am not doing any UB work.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows me, they know I love my UB. But then I also set those boundaries. And those boundaries is not anything to do with the university. I love the university. I love my students. I love the job that I do, but I also love me.
Yeah.
And also want to make sure that I have time to be able to replenish, to heal, and to enjoy other aspects of life.
And I think that's exactly where I was leaning. Boundaries is one of those buzzwords right now. Boundaries. Really important to set them. But why in this context, right, of bold growth, is because of what you said. You want to have the energy. You want to have the time to do the other things that you want to do. I want to have the focus,
You would say the bandwidth.
the bandwidth,
To
the
be able to do-
capacity.
yes.
And so we tend to give so much to others,
Yes.
and then when it's time to go after the things in our life, the areas where we want to grow in, whether it be business, life, relationships, whatever, we are depleted.
Yep.
And that's generally because could be other reasons, but I think a big part of it is
big
there
part of
aren't
it.
boundaries. We're giving so much to so many people, and we're not setting that or drawing that line.
And these
Yeah.
people could be anybody. Sometimes we don't even set boundary with the kids.
Yeah.
That's a difficult one, and especially with women, right? And I don't want to pretend to speak for women because I'm not a woman, but you hear it a lot when you have these discussions. Women have these guilt,
Yeah.
like they don't want to have to leave the kids, and they don't want. That's why you have a community, so you can be able to replenish. Because if you are not of any use to yourself, you're so tired, you're so overworked. You can't be of any use to the kids and to your husband or significant other. And so it's important for you, and that's what I like about you. And our dynamics is different because I can't compare you to somebody who has 3 and 4 small kids. You know what I'm saying? Because it would be unfair.
Right.
But you do well in cutting off at times to be able to replenish Keshelle.
Yeah. Oh, it's a must.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
I pour out so much.
Yeah.
And for me, if I don't be very, very clear and strict with the times when I need to replenish or rest, I would be a wreck.
Yeah.
And so,
And it spills over into other relationship, because if you're not able to cut off at work, you're not able to cut off with the things that you do, then I start to feel the pinch of it. Yeah, and then it comes across as if you and I have an issue when you and I don't have an issue. It's just that you're not your whole self to deal with me.
and I love what you said about guilt. And there's lots more reasons why people fail to set boundaries. And as we go through these, let us know if you can relate to it. But even because my daughter, Shelly, is 23.
She'll be 24.
She's going to be
next month.
24. But I remember when she was a child, I still had boundaries with her. And one of my boundaries was, look, mommy needs to sleep. Okay? Do not wake me if I am sleeping. Now, you know how I feel about sleep. Okay? I sleep. When I want to sleep, don't bother me. And I remember that from then, because I don't know how it manifests or how it showed up, but I remember making it very clear to my daughter that when mommy is sleeping, don't you wake her up. Whether that sounds good or not, I think that was one of those clear boundaries that I can still remember when she was a child. And it goes back to what you say. For me, my rest is so important. When I want to sleep, and if I don't get enough sleep, I am not going to be good to myself. I'm not going to be good to you. I'm not going to be good to the people I'm called to serve. And so we as women need to get, and there were times when I was guilty, absolutely. I felt guilty.
Yeah.
But we have to get over ourselves and remind ourselves that it's not about the other person. It's about our well-being, and it's about our growth.
And then you can set those boundaries, because it may sound a way you saying that, but if you have a community that can be able to assist, I may not be the point of contact for you to call now. Call your Grammy, call your mommy, call your auntie, call somebody else until I get some rest where I can properly give you the attention. And so it still comes back to having that community, because now if you're a single mother with no other help, it's gonna sound a different way, telling a child that, well, don't wake mommy. But the community, and then you have to put measures in place again to protect the boundary.
And each boundary looks different from other people. Like for me, that was a boundary that I had and I still have. So it looks different from other people, and it looks different at different seasons of your life as well. Another reason why people are
Before you go into another reason, even with us, there is this boundary, and I get to appreciate it now, 10, 11 years in, where in the first part of the relationship, I couldn't understand why first thing in the morning I got to be on my P's and Q's to deal with you. Like, I want to get up and I want to talk, I want to have a conversation, I want to be loud, I want to make noise, I want to interact with you. But that was not, you needed to set some boundary, and you needed a space to be able to
Wake
catch
up.
yourself, not even necessarily to wake up, because you're up, but you are still trying to get your thoughts together, get your mind together, get yourself together to be able to be effective to me and whatever it is. And I couldn't understand that for the love of
you
me.
used to be mad.
But now I am now aware that, you know what, this is not those times work for me, but it doesn't work for you. And once you're up and you get past that 7 to 9 period, you're good and you're able to interact.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because listen, Glenn used to be mad at me that I would wake up and I would
Annoyed.
be energetic and I wouldn't be into talking. And he used to be annoyed. Now I think you're good. Now every now and again you violate the boundaries and will jump on me and bring your energy. But
I up, I bouncing, I running around, I just finished exercising, and you laying up, so I just dive on.
But generally, that's a good point. As women, as men, whoever is listening, what boundaries are you setting in your relationships? Because it's not wise to think that because Glenn and I are married and we love being in each other's spaces and we love to be around each other and all of that stuff, that we don't set boundaries for each other. And so that's a critical piece of, and even on the flip side, even with him, because again, he's the early bird, I'm the night owl. So when I now 10, 11 o'clock at night, I want to talk. I want to talk about my day and I want to go through working, whatever project. And he's like, sis? I hate when they call me sis. I hate when they call me sis. But anyway, that's another show. He's like, No,
This is
I'm
my
done.
downtime. Like I'm done for the
This is
day.
it. And I'm like, so what?
And then
When are we going to do
and then
this?
you hype up and you want to talk about your day, and I am exhausted at this time.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, and that allowed me to also see it from the flip side. Yeah, to see it like, okay, I see what you feel in the morning. This is how I feel in the evening.
Right.
And be okay with each other having
Yeah.
those different boundaries set. Yeah.
I mean, there's so much things that we can say about boundaries. I think what is important when we think of, okay, why people struggle, because I'm a coach. I coach people, and this is a challenge. People do struggle with setting those boundaries. And one of the reasons, and there's lots of reasons, we talked about guilt, fear of conflict is one of them. We're just afraid to set the boundaries because
I don't want to upset my boss. I don't want to upset my significant other. But remember, the boundaries is not about them.
It's not about them.
It's about-
Another big one, and I remember having a conversation with a client on this, is family norms. Where, I can't set boundaries with my family, for example, because like we don't have boundaries. We do all of this with family.
Yeah.
So my family you could call me anytime, or I'm in business and I could drop
Yeah,
in.
you just show up, just drop by, just knock on the door, just use your key.
So we have to be mindful of that. There may be certain norms that we are ingrained in that prevent us from setting boundaries. And the last one is
No, before you get to the last one, my issues with that is taking the norms over into your marriage and a relationship. Because what may be okay for your family dynamics may not be okay
For your marriage.
for your marriage now, because then there's a different dynamics that's set up. Right? So
Yeah.
you don't just bust up to my house and just come and think
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas with your family, you could do that.
Yeah, and it even ties into the workplace because there's some workplaces. There is this norm, this culture that we go above and beyond. I think
And
we
you should
started to
work
talk
till-
about
you
it.
should work till
Like
midnight.
it's normal, and if you don't work around the clock and be available at all times,
Yeah.
you are not the model employee. We have to also know what boundaries we are going to set there. Right? When do you cut off? When do you not respond? When do you say, this is my time and I am not going to be available? I remember one session we did, she said her boss called at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I remember we were teaching and the young lady said her boss called, she worked at a hotel.
And that's
Her
just
boss
one
called at
story.
3 o'clock. I had
You know?
goosebumps after that. I was
You
like,
know, some
where?
people, the bosses
You could call. I can't stop you because I have no control over how you dial on your phone. But I have the power to not answer my
Yes,
phone.
I had a
at 3
client who messaged me on Sunday morning recently,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, it's very easy to check that message, but my boundary is set. I am not going to check that message, and I'm not going to respond until the next day.
And I don't get bent out of shape. I just know my boundary is my boundary.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be upset because you call. Right? On the same token, if you upset because I don't answer, that is on you. But my boundary is my
Yeah,
boundary.
and there's so much that could be said because and I think what we want to go into now is, because we can talk about the types of boundaries, but how do we set boundaries? How, from your
Before you talk
standpoint?
about how do we set boundaries, because I want to get this clear, because then sometimes when you say things and you say it, and people could just anchor onto it. The boundaries is to protect
You,
the person,
me.
right? Me,
You.
right? However, there may be times when you may have to break that boundary, but I make that determination and not being forced or pressured. Like, we have boundaries where we don't take any engagement Saturdays and Sundays. Saturday night is our movie night, and the
Sundays.
skies could be falling. We ain't coming, we ain't going, because that's our time
Yeah.
to be together. Sunday is our day of worship, sacred for us,
Sleep.
and so.
Sunday is a sleep day.
Yeah, and so, and not only sleep, just eat, family, and all that stuff. But there may be times when you have to take a speaking engagement. But
I
you
choose to
determine
take
that.
it.
Yes, you choose to take a speaking engagement. But they are few and far between. It's not the norm.
Yeah.
And so there may be times when you have to break your boundary to accommodate others, because you don't want to be so stringent and so selfish.
Yeah.
Right, like 2 weekends ago when I was doing some project at work, and I normally don't work on the weekend per se, but when my boss called me on the weekend, I responded to her because we were doing a project for accreditation. And so I made an exception to engage her on the weekend, right? And so the point is, you can also break the boundary for exception, but don't let those
No,
be
it
the
can't be the
norm.
norm.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that point.
Yeah.
I always look at it from this standpoint. Are you enforcing your boundaries 80 to 90% of the time? And if you are 80% of the time, that's you consistently enforcing
Yeah.
your boundaries. If you say that you have a boundary and 80% of the time you're not enforcing it, you don't have a boundary.
No, you don't have a boundary.
You don't have a boundary. And then what happens is we find ourselves, and I could see it from my work in coaching, women now, the result of it, we're not getting our business, we're not getting our work done, we're not doing our business. If you come to me and you had certain work that you needed to do in between our calls, and you come to me and say, Keshelle, I get it done because I had to run here for mom, I had to run here for sister, I had to run here for brother, I had to do this for friend, I had to do this for family. We love them, but is it now affecting your ability to achieve and get the work done? And if so, yes, that means that there aren't any boundaries.
And then if you stretched all over the place that you cannot cater to your family, you cannot cater to your husband or your wife, it's
Yeah.
gonna affect the relationship. When you are stretched at work, like today, you were stretched at work, and we almost didn't have this segment.
Absolutely.
Because at one point in time, I'm like, you need to just make your mind if you're gonna do this or not. Because where's the boundary? You have a lunch hour, where's the boundary?
Yeah.
And so we have to determine.
Yeah, and it's so easy, and I love that you said that. It's so easy to fall back into
Yeah,
just life.
yeah.
In a given day, in a given week, if your day gets full or so many things happening, it's so easy to slide back into it. And so someone can have really strong boundaries, and naturally, why you smiling?
I smile because as you're talking, I'm thinking, how do you set boundary with your church and your pastor?
Oh, Jesus.
I know that one, Lord, we getting ready to wrap this up.
Oh, you
And
going
that's why
there?
God open Pandora's box.
Oh, you
Because
going
sometimes we in these ministry, not my ministry, Life Changes ministry, right? We're in the and Life Changes,
That's it, but
and Life Changes is a church that constantly have activities going, right? But then there are still boundaries, and it comes even from the leader enforcing boundaries
Yeah.
down. So it's easy for me to say I'm not available to do this because I don't get the consequences and the oh you ain't saved and you see what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
even if you could be in
I
ministry and if you set boundaries with some of your religious leaders, it's as if you are rebellious and you are my pastor, you're not my God. And if I have a boundary where I don't do something on a Friday night and you're asking me to do it, and I'm respectfully saying, you know what, I've already had prior engagement with my family for that.
Yeah.
You should be able to do that. And a lot of the times you're not able to do that.
It's so interesting that you said that. Wow. One of the points that I have here is identify your non-negotiables when setting boundaries. And it ties to no matter what industry, including ministry.
Yeah.
Because that was last week or 2 weeks ago, that week that I literally taught all day, taught all night, led an event all Saturday, right? And I pour out so much. And I remember saying to you the day before, don't look for me at church. And he was, and again, you've grown too, because you used to be out of shape.
Yeah, it's to be like,
Used
oh,
to be like-
you could do all these other things and find time for all these other things. Now it's Sunday, it's time to go to church, and now you all depleted. I said, what if God tell you he depleted?
No, and it goes back to the boundaries, and it says here, identify areas where you may feel drained,
Yeah.
right? And I knew that if I didn't force myself to stop on that Sunday, stop meaning being around people, like I needed that silence,
Yeah.
I needed that refuel, right? I love the Lord, but I needed to be in my own space. I didn't need to see people, okay? I had people all day, all night, all week. And I had to say, you know what? This is a boundary right here. I cannot go into another week pouring out and not give myself at least a day to stop, reflect, be silent, not use my voice. And that is something that I think we have to be okay with doing, whether it's ministry, whether it's work, whether it's home, whether it's family. What
I was okay with you staying home.
you, you didn't say anything now. I don't know if you were okay, but I was okay. And but you didn't react. Did you react?
Of course not. Of course not.
Normally he would have reacted. And he
In
would
the
have had
years
some.
gone by, I would have been
Yeah.
like, but now I understand. And I watched you that week. I watched you that week work like from early that morning to late that evening, straight up until Saturday. And
Yeah,
I
and
was
so my
okay.
boundary was I need that space in my week to pour back into me, regardless of what happened, right? And so when we're looking at setting our boundaries, what are non-negotiable? My non-negotiable is I need at least one day for me. Ordinarily that would have been a Saturday. So Sunday I would have been fine going to church. I loved, but that Saturday I was people in all day. So I'm like, no. We need a day.
he was getting that bag. I hope you give God half of that bag.
We need a day in between Monday and Monday. And be okay with people not appreciating that and people being upset with you potentially because you know what you need. It goes back to the definition. It is for your own well-being. And I know that if Keisha did not stop before the Monday again, and Monday is be Mondaying, I had to stop. I had to set that boundary and reinforce it.
Totally.
Any comments? Because we are.
No, we are the time, not out of information. As you can see, Keisha can talk a lot. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up right here. And I just want to leave this one point with you if you get nothing else from this entire conversation is that setting boundaries is okay, and setting boundary is about you,
Yeah.
not the other person.
And we only
be okay
Yeah.
if people don't okay with your boundary.
Yeah, and the only point we did really get to is that non-negotiable,
Yeah.
right? Identifying, so that's your bold action for this episode.
Yeah.
Identify what your non-negotiables are.
And what at least one area you can set a boundary in this week.
Until
All right?
next
Until
time.
next time, Dr. Glennon,
Lady Keshelle.
you're out.